Funny name, really pretty cup. Today's video is for the Bloody Buddy Menstrual Cup. Let's get started. Hi, Kim Rosas from Period Nirvana, and I am the cup tester here and the only one here to do the cup testing. So if there's a review, it's going to be going through my body, at least for the time being. And this review is for the Bloody Buddy Menstrual Cup. And just so you know, if you're new here, first, make sure you subscribe. And also, you can skip ahead through chapters. So I like to rant a little bit about companies and overview. I'll typically do comparisons in my review videos, and then I'll talk about how it actually performed for me. So if you don't care about that other stuff, just scroll on the bottom of YouTube and skip ahead to the chapter that sounds the most applicable to what you're looking for. Trying to make it easy for you. Now, first, a little background on Bloody Buddy as a company. Thought you might be interested in some of that. Bloody Buddy started as a what I would call a white label cup, and there's a whole bunch of information on what that means on periodnirvana.com. I'll leave a link for you. But it essentially, as quickly as I can, is the brand will buy from wholesale a menstrual cup that anyone could buy, you, me, or anyone can purchase wholesale, put their own branding and box around it, and sell it. Now, that is how this company started. What they did eventually do is hold a Kickstarter, and they designed their own proprietary cup design, had it kickstarted, funded successfully, and then came out with their new branding and their new design. So previously, when people had asked when I was still at Put a Cup in It to review it, I wouldn't review it because it was a generic. Now it's a proprietary cup. And so I'm happy to give my thoughts on that and showcase the features and the designs because, as it turns out, it's quite a neat cup. It comes in these paper tubes, and that's really a popular thing now. More and more and more cups are coming out with the paper tube design packaging, and it's just really convenient, very recyclable, very eco-friendly, perfect for cups. And they come in 2 packs. So I pulled 3 out of here because that's what I put in here, but they actually come with 2. So you can't really buy 1 cup from Bloody Buddy. You can just buy a 2-pack of whatever size combination you want. So either you can try 2 different sizes or you can buy 2 of the same size. 3 sizes that you can choose from: the Bud, Blossom, Bloom. I tried to memorize that, and I probably still messed it up, so you might see text. And they are very, very shiny, which I like from a photography perspective. I think they're quite fun. And they come in a ton of fun primary color options. So there are lots of colorful cups, but there really aren't a lot that are primary colors. Most of them go for these pastel, sort of Instagram kind of colors, and they went for just a very primary green, blue, yellow, red. So those are some of the options. And you can kind of get the gist of that from their packaging, which has those colors highlighted in their on their packaging. Quick note about the name. I have no idea where the name came from. I have had mixed emotions. Is it supposed to be funny? Or is it meant to be totally serious? I don't know. I didn't ask, so I'm actually quite curious. I probably should. I'm not a huge fan of the name. It actually just kind of, I don't know. It's not my favorite brand name. That doesn't take away anything from the performance of the cup. I just don't like the name. They all seem like very nice people. In fact, the woman who runs their social media and does a lot of their educational efforts on TikTok and Instagram, I think her name is Meredith, she does a phenomenal job. So if you want more cup information and I'm not your go-to, they could also give you a ton of information. So they're doing a good job with that. Back to the cup and what you get. When you get the 2-pack, you do get included the pouch that you will need to store your cup in between your cycles. So that comes with it in here. For overall cup dimensions and impressions and such, the size range is all on the long side. So this cup is not really ideal for someone who has a slightly lower than average cervix or low cervix, depending on the capacity you're looking for. Obviously, this mini is a shorter cup than the smaller large, but if you need the capacity and you need a larger size, this one is longer, so you're gonna have to decide, do I want this brand or do I want a higher capacity but shorter cup? And on that as well, this is a firm cup. So this is a Diva cup compared to the Bloody Buddy. Try to do this as well as I can here. And it is a firm cup. So from my personal experience, which I'll get into a little bit more later, I definitely found it on the firm spectrum, the end of the firm spectrum compared to Diva, which is in the middle, and something like a Salt Soft, which is the soft average, and then something like a Nudie, which is like barely, like it's just like flimsy. So it's definitely firm, which is great if you're super active and you need a firm cup. You want something to stay in place. It also is good when you're a first timer because firm cups go pop. They really, really want to open, like they want to open. The cup otherwise has these little wavy textured grip rings on the bottom. It has notched stems so that you can kind of decide, hey, I want to, cut here, here, or here. And you can cut it all the way to the end of the base as well. It has small suction holes, and those are, they're not big that you just run water under them, but they're not teeny tiny. So they're right where I like them. And I would imagine that if you were to fill this cup up and it went above the holes, it shouldn't really leak through because menstrual fluid is viscous. It's not running through these tiny holes. On the design, they have these ribs, internal ribs that they have built in. Therefore, I'll try to get a picture that you can see them because when I look into it with light, you can actually see them. And that's part of how they have it designed to help it be firm and open, giving it some structure. So the body is not as firm as the rim, but they're very close. And then the rim is an internal rim, meaning it's completely smooth here. So for those who have had bladder pressure issues, I don't think that that's going to change much because it's such a firm cup. It's probably going to, if you've had bladder pressure issues before, it's probably still going to have bladder pressure issues because it's a firm cup, but something to think about. And on that design feature, it has what we would call sort of a ball inside of this. Capacity-wise, here are the capacity numbers to go over to compare for other cup brands. If I were to compare this to another kind of long cup in the 3 sizes, this is the Diva Zero and the Bloody Buddy Bud, their smallest. And this is a good teen-sized starter cup. And it is actually shorter still than the Diva cup. The size 1 small Diva cup with the small size 1. And so they're fairly comparable, but when you remove the stems, the Bloody Buddy is still shorter. And same story for the Diva cup size 2 and the Bloody Buddy's Bloom. This one is shorter when you remove the stem, but not by much. Now to cover how it worked for me, I tried it and I had to chop the stem because I am, especially on my first cycle days, slightly lower than average cervix. So not a low cervix by any means, but I've definitely been leaning towards when I'm trying cups and wanting to use cups, the shorter cups. In fact, I've been recently trying the Cotton Mermaid Guppy because it is in fact a low cervix cup, and I was happy with that, and also have been trying the Hello Cup Low Cervix, and that is a shorter cup and seems to work really well for me. So of course I had to trim the stem on this, and it was still quite low. I was still able to use the largest, which is their Blossom size. So going to inserting this cup, because it's so firm, this thing really wants to open. And even as experienced as a cup user as I am used to cups that aren't quite as firm. So the very first time I put this thing in, it was like my eyes bugged out of my head because it opened a little early. Usually not much of an issue, but because it's so firm and it kind of gives that outward pressure. When it opened, it somewhat was, I wouldn't say painful, but definitely not comfortable and certainly a shock. And I could tell, like, whoa, this is something. So I don't usually get that experience with cups the size. It's all about the firmness. Having had that experience, I was extremely deliberate when I continued testing. Instead of having it open quite near the vaginal opening, which usually I can just do that because it was uncomfortable, I was really aiming to get that sucker really high before I allowed it to open. Once it was open, it was totally fine. It did cause a slower urine stream, which I've discussed at length in my old channel, my old videos, that firmer cups do that for me. This did as well, but it's not uncomfortable in this case, and so it wasn't something I would discontinue use over. If it were causing actual pressure where I felt the need to urinate or discomfort or stop urine flow, that is certainly something I would not want to continue with. And the cup itself was very comfortable. I know I said it was sort of just, uncomfortable to insert, but once it was in, it was totally fine. I didn't find that it was slipping, even though it doesn't have like a rim, which I typically prefer cups with a rim. And it definitely worked, which is the big test, right? I didn't have any leaks with it. And removing the cup because it has these grips, and I didn't have a stem on mine. I did cut the stem, but I was able to grab this, especially with that little notch that it has, to remove the cup and empty it. So it's really not a super exciting review because nothing of note happened other than the one like expansive pop. And so you really do have to be careful with these firm cups because you don't want that experience for yourself. I think had I wanted to go through and try the next size down, it probably would have been a little bit better on that front because it is a smaller diameter. So I think that's it for this review. You can find more and purchase it from the Bloody Buddy website. Like I mentioned, they do only sell them in pairs. And I'll give a link in the video description for that. So you can find other menstrual cup resources on period.nirvana.com, such as more reviews and more menstrual cup content coming up soon. And also, if you would like to get help with your products or just ask questions, the Period Nirvana community on Facebook is a great place for that. I'm also constantly posting small, helpful menstrual cup videos and content on my Instagram at Period Nirvana. So that's it for this video. I will see you all in the next one.